Welcome to Self-Formation BU. I am Edna Scher, keynote speaker, networker, and educator in health, prevention, and functional medicine. This podcast is my platform to share knowledge freely because education is empowerment and prevention is the most powerful medicine we have. Here, I connect science, epigenetics, gut health, hormones, trauma, and leadership culture, bridging medicine with the real world of doctors, practitioners, and business owners who want to create healthier teams and sustainable success. Because let's be honest, less sickness in your team is the best pill for a growing and thriving business. Self-Formation BU is about seeing a whole picture, connecting your biology, your mindset, and your environment. Whether you are a healthcare professional, an entrepreneur, or someone who simply wants to understand your body better, this podcast gives you practical insight, expert conversations, and strategies you can apply immediately. Knowledge should not be hidden. It should flow. Welcome to this movement of mine. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Self-Formation BU. This is episode 77. As much as my year date that I was born. And today I have Laurie Jones again here. This time we will explore a little bit about how to navigate through life with difficult situations or difficult stories through faith. So welcome again, Laurie. Nice to have you again, very early in the morning for you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So last time after we hung up, we spoke a little bit more about how belief in God or how faith in God is acting in life. And I'd like to ask you directly, so how did you, with your story of your father having Huntington's disease, how did you navigate through life?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and actually, maybe I'll start with it's nice to be asked that question. Often in many of the areas where I speak, faith doesn't come up, or it maybe comes up in a small way. I'm either talking about science or I'm talking about literature, or I'm talking to public schools about overcoming obstacles to success. So there's different audiences. And while it's sprinkled, it's almost never the main topic. So this is fun. I get to talk about it. And I would say that my faith was a main topic. It's woven throughout the book, which as I wrote the book, I wanted to balance the story with, the true me, who I am. And I am a person of faith. And so as I worked with the editor, she was always so good about helping me balance an authentic experience with the dignity of my father in check at all times. And then also I told her, I said, I would like to express the faith, not in a preachy way, but in a here's what happened to me way. Mm-hmm. And I would not be true to you if I told you that throughout it, I didn't have doubt and anger and all the emotions that come along with being human and having things happen to you. But I think that's normal. And that was part of the process. So to begin with, I was sent to Sunday school as a small girl, and that's in the book. And I credit my mother for taking us to church. My father was raised Catholic and showed up on, the holidays. He would come on the holidays. He didn't love it. I think he was struggling with balancing his Catholic upbringing with what God could really look like for him, and also faced with knowing he very likely was inheriting a genetic disease. So as a small girl, Sunday school trained, but it really was going to a summer camp that brought me to a faith. And it was a small camp in Midwestern Wisconsin that a good friend brought me to. And it was actually my first week away from home, away from my family. And it was a life-changing experience. And so after that, I did have a faith. And I think that the faith was about the only constant in a very changing situation. So I'll pause there in case you have follow-up questions.
So how old were you when you went first time away from home for a week?
Yeah, so middle school. I was probably 12. It was a big deal to go away for a week to sleepaway camp.
Yeah.
And my good friend at school, and I was cautious with friendships. So I share in the book that having friends come to the home was not usually allowed. And if it was allowed, I was nervous the whole time because Huntington's disease and my father manifested often with angry outbursts and unpredictable behavior. And so if you have a parent who might get angry, you probably don't want your friends over. So it was an isolating situation. My sister and I didn't often have friends over. We usually went somewhere else. We went to a friend's house. So this friend and I started to become close in middle school, but she didn't know anything about my family. I hadn't told her anything. And when she invited me to camp, she said there'll definitely be cute boys there. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go.
Okay.
And I didn't know that my parents could afford it or if they would let me. So I think because it was church related, that got me, my mother to say yes. And then I saved up all my babysitting money to help pay to go for the.
So what was this strong experience that brought you to faith?
Yeah, so the camp was a church camp. So, there was all the teachings, which didn't really remind me of anything other than Sunday school or maybe youth group. But I think it was probably being there in the nature, in the outdoors, with people who loved you unconditionally. And I did share with my camp counselor as much as I was willing to share about what was happening in my home. She was very supportive. In the book, I talk about how, I kind of got the church answers, like, you probably just need to pray about that or it'll be okay. But I also wasn't sharing the whole story that my family was in crisis. But what I did find was the overwhelming understanding and peace that God would be in control. And yeah, I had to go back home. I was nervous to go back home. Would things be different? How would it be? But being that week away, I think I was able to be myself and experience the outdoors. And there was a camp pastor who, of course, gave the motivating message that you needed this relationship with God in order to navigate life. And as a middle school student, I don't know any middle school students that aren't struggling with some sort of navigation of their life.
Especially today.
Yeah.
So what was exactly different between going to Sunday school if you were in middle school in the camp time? That means you had already a lot of Sunday school time beforehand, many years. What was the different quality maybe of what you received between Sunday school and this 1 week camp?
Yeah, I think for me, it was academic versus relationship. And I started to understand that, you could read all the stories of what happened in the Bible. But at camp, it was all about, this is the relationship and here's how you can talk to God. You could just say whatever you want. And no, it's not going to guarantee that life will be perfect, but this is your friend. This is someone you talk to. This is your guide through life. So very much different from, sitting in the circle table and having what I felt like as a small girl, having the right answer. Because I was a student, always an excellent student, wanted to please the teacher, wanted to have the right answer. So that was Sunday school to me. It was having the right answer. Camp to me was, how do we get through life? Because life's hard. Yes. And that really made the difference. I won't lie to you. I came home and things were very hard. I don't know if I expected things to be remarkably better, but they definitely weren't. And so I had periods of being very sad. I also had to reckon with myself and come to the understanding that God was everywhere. God was with me. It wasn't just when I was at camp. Camp was, of course, the place where I was with my friends and we were close and we all knew each other and our struggles. And coming out of that back to the day-to-day where you still have to do the dishes and go to school and do your homework was sometimes a letdown. But I returned every year. I returned every year to that camp. I actually was a counselor at that camp. I sent my children to that camp. So it holds very special place. I actually spoke there a few months ago about the book and talked to some people that were at camp. So I think if you're fortunate enough to have a place and a moment to revisit it is very special.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, one of my questions that I wanted to ask was, how was the transition back from the camp into the home life? But also, like you said in the beginning, that you did have some times of, how did you say that? Like, not struggle, but like not being clear whether God is still with you and so on, like doubts, I think you said.
Yes, doubts.
So, like, 1 week is actually not really a lot for a person, like making friendship with God, versus 7 years of academic Sunday school, right?
Yes.
So it must have had an impact that did, even in doubt, kind of like a hand that is holding you, right?
I would agree. It definitely was an impact. And I think to this day, the outdoors, to that quiet, it all came together to impress upon me that God was real, that God was there. And again, the understanding and confirmation that life wouldn't be perfect. I think that was very important for me. I think many people are felt that if you follow this formula, things are going to work a certain way, or that things shouldn't happen to you. You'll be preserved, you're safe. And I felt more encased. Things might happen, but I had a protective coating or something along those lines. And yes, you go home and things were not great, but I also felt like I had some connections then. So this will date me, but we wrote letters back and forth. So friends from camp, counselors from camp, and then I had that one friend that I went with, and we talked at length back home. And I was eventually able to share with her some of what was going on in my home. I didn't tell her everything, but I go back to, you can only share what you feel comfortable with, but it is so important to share with someone a struggle you're having so that you can support each other. And that was probably one of the closest moments I came to, really explaining what was going on, to the understanding I had of what was going on in my home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any faith encouraging stories of later on where you felt that you were asking God for help or answers or something and you received signs?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple that I share in the book, and one I'll share is we just had later on in life when we were caring for Dad, my husband and I were guardians. Could not get him to go to the doctor. He wouldn't leave the adult care home, but he needed his psychotropic meds readjusted. And at the time, the doctor wasn't going to come to him. There wasn't going to be a home visit. He needed to go to the doctor, and he refused. And we were at a situation where this facility he was staying at said, he's not medicated. He can't stay here. Mm-hmm. And he wouldn't go to the doctor. And I was just pressed on all sides. And I would say that the social worker that I was in contact with through the decade that we cared for Dad was an angel. She always picked up when I called her. She always helped me. She just helped me navigate how to take care of someone who had this level of need. Mm-hmm. And I called her again. Here's my situation. He won't go. I can't get him to go. He needs the meds. She said, let me see what I can do. And so the book shares the whole story, but I'll give you just a snippet. The gentleman that agreed to come was she told me, a retired neurology expert. And he'll do it pro bono. He can't prescribe the medication, but perhaps your father will feel seen, was how she expressed it.
Okay.
So we drove down, it was a couple hours away. He met us there. My dad was outside sitting on the picnic table, and he loved to sit outside. So we sat down with him, and this expert comes up, plain clothes, looking ordinary fellow, and carrying a McDonald's sack, so fast food bag of hamburgers and French fries. And he sits down at the picnic table and says hi to my dad and offers him a French fry. And this is how the examination began. And they just talked, and he listened. Eventually, my dad let him pull out his stethoscope and listen to his chest and check his reflexes on his knees and do a few things. And then this doctor said, here's some recommendations I have for you. Get all the calories you can. You're burning a lot of them. And he said, there are some medications. I'd go to the doctor and get those. Mm-hmm. And he left. It turns out later, this gentleman, and he's since passed away, but I learned later he was the renowned Huntington's disease expert in our area. Right. I have no idea why he agreed to come see my father. It was pro bono. He was retired, no longer practicing. And after that, my dad went to the doctor, got his medications adjusted, and was much more comfortable, and the facility kept him. The facility actually kept him till the end of his life when he went into hospice. So that in and of itself was a moment where I know we were being helped, and we were being cared for in a way I couldn't have possibly orchestrated.
Yeah.
It's just one of many. Yeah. One of many. I can tell you more.
Yes, give me another one.
Right, so
I'm getting already teary here.
I have another one. Did we talk about the artist that was at the facility last time? I can't remember whether we did, about my father being used to draw. We'll share that one quick, and then I'll share the phone calls. So at that same facility, I loved that place because they told me when he arrived that they would get creative, which is what we very much needed, because my father needed creativity. And one of the things with Dad was his days and nights are mixed up, very common neurological illness. And everywhere he had ever stayed before, well, you had a bedtime. And this place said, he's a grown man. He can stay up as late as he wants. We'll work around that. Mm-hmm. Perfect. So my dad would stay up most nights. And the third shift gentleman that worked at that facility was an art student at the local college. And he was up all night because that was his job. And he was drawing and doing his assignments for school. Well, my dad was an artist in every sense of the word. And he was a chef and an artist and an inventor, carpenter. He did all kinds of creative things, but he loved to draw. And of course, he couldn't even hold a spoon anymore, but he would sit at the kitchen table with this young man, and he'd have a bowl of ice cream or a glass of milk, and he would watch this young man draw. Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't talk. He would just sit and watch him draw. And I felt like that was a gift in and of itself, was that he could vicariously still see art, still participate in a way just by sitting next to someone who was. So I love that story. Those things just don't happen by accident.
Yeah.
And then the one thing I would tell you is there is a pastor in the book, and I call him Pastor D, and I remember him from being little. And my mom tells me that this pastor and his wife were friends with my mom and dad, and they would do things socially together. And of course, I'm too young to remember those. But my dad didn't have a lot of friends, so this man must have been special. Later in his life, I contacted this pastor because I knew his health was failing. And I knew this gentleman had been special to him. At least I felt like they had a connection. And would he be willing to, I was trying to prepare for the funeral. Would he be available to conduct such a thing? Was he still in the area? And my mother helped me find him through social media, of all things. And he called me. He said, I need to call you. So he calls me up, and he sounds just like he used to when I was little. And he said, I knew John well. And he said, what you maybe don't know is he used to call me. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, he used to call in the middle of the night. I used to get phone calls in the middle of the night, and no one on the other end would speak. It was just silent. But he said, something told me to stay on the phone. Something told me to stay on the phone. And so I would just stay. And sometimes I would pray for the person. I would say, I'm here. I hear you. And then the person would click off. He said, this happened for a month or two. Mm-hmm. Eventually, the person identified themselves as your father. And so we began to talk. He said he would call maybe once a week, sometimes more. And he said, what I can tell you, he said, I won't tell you everything we talked about, but what I can tell you was he was afraid. He told me he thought he was getting sick. And more than anything, he wanted to care for his family, his 2 little girls. And I talked him through it. He said, I can't promise you that that's not going to happen. But I can help you have peace. I can help you navigate the situation. And they talked by phone for the longest time. And he said, I can tell you that your father had faith. I had never witnessed such a thing. I didn't know. I was struggling with, did he, didn't he? He seemed very hostile to it my whole time growing up.
Mm-hmm.
But here was this man telling me a totally different story. And he said, do you think that would give hope to the people when I come to the funeral? I said, oh, yes, please. Please share that story when you come to do that. And above all things, he was able to get to him and visit him in hospice one more time before he passed away. And he told me, he called me after, he said, I think he recognized me. We had a visit and I was able to pray for him. So that one was probably the tops. I couldn't imagine how we would have found that man again. And if I hadn't have found him, I would have never known that story. Yeah.
Very deep.
Yes. So many things.
Yes. I want to quickly make a link to something a little bit more lighthearted. Something that you told me just before we started the recording. You said that you're helping your people in your normal daily life work to share on LinkedIn personal matter and not only the professional. And I thought that it just popped up now in my head when you spoke about the difference between Sunday school to the camp that you had.
Yes.
And about sharing. And that's also kind of like, your daily work that you do is more an academic thing, right? But
yes.
the sharing personal stuff. Yeah. Yes. So you're kind of still taking those experiences and applying them into today's work.
I couldn't agree more. So I struggled when I first wrote the book. Everyone, right? They tell you, get an author social, have an author social presence. And people do things different ways and they may want division for whatever reason, but I tried it. First of all, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to have a complete separate set of social media for what you do versus who you are. And I struggled with it. And then I also realized I was struggling with it on a higher level because I think what you do should be who you are. I think the two must combine. And if they don't, you will be forever compartmentalized. So I decided to do away with it. I put some posts out and said, here we go.
Yeah. Sorry, my little one is coming to show me.
Hello, little one. Hi.
So that's a live podcast. People will see whatever. No, we're not live. We're not live. But
yeah, people come in.
Just wait a second. I will pause for a second. Okay, we're back. After children accident.
No, it happens all the time. I think post-COVID, we've all figured out how to work remote. I always say I was remote before remote was cool. I've always worked remote. I do travel a lot and go to offices as I can, but I work for a company that provides technology and print services across the United States. So I lead optimization teams and data intelligence. And we were talking about, what is the intersection of your personal life with your professional social space? And especially when the book came out, I had been counseled by multiple marketing companies and other authors saying, oh, you must keep it separate. You must have a separate social author page. And I will tell you at first, the reason I wanted to do away with it because it was double the work. I already don't love all the social posting that is required with in life. And here I am doing it again for this whole other persona. But what was at the heart of the matter was I feel like who I am and what I do needed to be in one space. And so I did away with the author pages and I made an announcement out there and said, okay, we're consolidating into one. You're going to perhaps get a picture of my grandchild, me in my kayak, me at work, and me with my book, because that's who I am. And I think it's been nothing but better. I think that people want to see the whole you, even on professional social media like LinkedIn. And I think it adds color to who you are. It adds humanity. And in this age of agentic AI and the robots are doing all our click work. We need more humanity than ever. And so I've approached it as, this is who you get. You get me, you get my viewpoints, you get me as a faith person, me as an author, a lover of nature, a lover of technology. I might complete a jigsaw puzzle and put a picture of it out there. Like, I'm going to tell you who I am, and I really hope that you tell me who you are.
Yeah.
And we'll do away with the compartmentalization. We may not always agree. I have friends across multiple faiths, multiple political views, but we're all human at the end. And maybe that sounds a little Pollyanna or pie in the sky, but how else will we get to a humanity without showing our whole selves and seeing other people for who they are?
I agree.
That's where I'm at.
I agree 100%. This is so beautiful.
Yeah, I am today.
I like that word that you said. I mean, I dislike it, but I like that you brought it in. The word persona. This persona here and this persona there and so on. This is it's actually so much not the word. The word persona actually is the person, and the person is a holistic human being with so many facets. And here we're going, we're taking it and we're making different personalities and
it's fracturing
vision. Yeah,
it's fracturing who we are.
Exactly.
To create personas. And actually, I do it in my work. So as part of scoping requirements for technology and for process change, we use personas. And so when you write your user story, you're saying, as a accountant, I need this tool to show me all the numbers. I'm just making that up. Mm-hmm. But we set up personas so that we can meet user requirements for the tools that we deliver.
Yeah.
But our lives shouldn't be personas.
No, exactly. Exactly.
And we've turned it into that. And it's sometimes sad. So you get the whole me, you get who I am. I don't get a ton of opportunity to talk in depth about my faith. So this has been a wonderful opportunity to do so. But most people don't get away without a sprinkle of it here and there because it's just who I am.
And how do you live your faith today?
Yeah. So today, it's interesting. Post-COVID, we didn't attend a church building. Mm-hmm. And so today, I still don't attend a church building. I am meeting online with people, one person from Spain and other people from the United States. So the dialogue is still happening. I'm still reading scripture. I'm still talking about it with my family, the family members who are believers. Mm-hmm. I'm continuing to educate myself. But we're just about to head into a chapter where my husband is retiring. And so now we're trying to decide, like, what does the next chapter look like? And people will ask me, oh, you're not attending. I used to speak regularly. Every Wednesday morning, I taught a group of women. Sometimes 100 would come. It was a very big group. Mm-hmm. And I stopped doing that because work was very demanding at the time. Mm-hmm. And so people say, will you go back to speaking? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what comes next. But I've decided every chapter might look different, and that's okay. So that's where I'm at today. There's no official building attendance. Occasionally with my daughter, I'll go, but no official building attendance right now.
I mean, God is not in a building, right?
I couldn't agree more. Not everyone sees it that way. You're not going anymore. I'm like, well, I am though, in my heart.
Yeah, I mean, he's everywhere.
Yes.
Literally.
And I think it definitely looks different post-COVID in many aspects. And I think that will forever have changed the landscape of our planet on whether people attend. And now the virtual experience is, many people are going to a virtual church that is in a whole different country or state than where they live. Yes. Do you get the face-to-face? No. And sometimes that can be a detriment. So you have to find the relationships you need. Again, camp was a relationship. Yeah. So that's what started it all. So I need to continue to find those relationships. Or
maybe let's upgrade that that word. You said camp wasn't the relationship. It was the opening to meet a relationship.
Exactly. It was the introduction from academics to a relationship.
Yeah.
And once you make that step, then you can continue to grow in a variety of different ways.
Exactly. So I also wrote here some notes before. I think faith is something very, very personal,
Yes.
very intimate as well.
Mhm.
And when you connect with God, I think it's the purest form of love, the
Yes,
original, the original form of love that also enables you to be authentic yourself.
I agree. I agree. And with the book, the authenticity was key. Um, it brought about difficult topics. And I've had multiple people from the Huntington's community to say, thank you for talking about that particular aspect. And most of it was like behaviors because no one was talking about it.
Yeah,
And, there's shame and there's stigma, and we don't want to talk about that. And it's unsettling. But in order to be authentic, you have to talk about the hard things.
absolutely.
You can do it with dignity.
Hmm.
And so what I have heard time and time again is just thank you for the authenticity. And so you put yourself out there, it's vulnerable, but
Hmm.
there's no better way to be authentic than to also be vulnerable.
Absolutely. And if you're not sharing and if you cannot be yourself, then we're going back into this persona
Then you're messy.
problematic, right? But also
I still struggle.
there is only help and development when you show yourself vulnerable.
Agreed. And I won't lie to you, I don't have it all together. I'll still struggle. I'll worry, like, what will someone think if they read, this chapter? Will they judge me, or will they whatever? And I just have to get over yourself. This is what happened. Here's me. These are the choices I made. This is what I did. And um, hope that the other person shows up authentically as well. And
Yes.
that's all you can do. Not everyone will. And it's okay. In the
Okay.
Huntington's community, I have found it to be a very judgment-free zone, which has been wonderful. You can make a lot of ethical decisions when faced with a 50% risk. You have to decide whether you are going to test or not. You have to decide whether you're going to have biological children. You may have an ethical decision about whether you believe in IVF.
Mhm.
There are so many ethical decisions, and everyone handles it different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Of course. Thanks for asking. This was the highlight of my day. I'm glad I got to start with it.
Maybe one more thing about judgments. I mean, we are
Yeah.
kind of, I think you're half a generation older than me. I think our parents' generation, yours and mine, are about the same age or would be the same age.
Yeah.
This is a generation, or this was a generation that was very judgmental. The
Yeah.
older generation, out of survival, out of
Mhm.
Second World War, First World War, and so on, which
Mhm.
made people judgmental, more judgmental than today, way more, because there was also no social media. You couldn't know what was going on. I mean, a letter took 3 weeks to arrive somewhere. And
Right.
I think it was a strategy of survival. Versus today, we do have judgments, but they are very short lived, usually, because there is so much going on that people forget what they're
Yes.
actually judging, which is
Yeah.
a blessing as well, sometimes.
Right.
And we are also the generation that went through the development of it's okay to go to a psychologist, especially in the
Yes.
US, more in the US than in Europe, um, which relativates a lot of the judgment again. It's like, okay, people have got something. And throughout this development of coaching and psychology and so on and so forth, there is quite a big, I would say, development and movement of people who learn to say, I don't give a damn about what people think about me.
Yes.
And
I
that's
would.
also quite a healthy thing for for us, I guess.
It's very healthy to care. So who is it that said, if you realized how very little people think of you, you wouldn't worry about it so much. Like it's a flash in the pan. They
That's right.
maybe saw a picture of you, they had a thought, they had a judgment, and they moved on. Our attention
Exactly.
spans are very small.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the culture, the small town that I grew up in, my grandfather was affluent. He was a man's man. There was that whole gender. My dad was tough. He didn't want to look weak. You had all of those societal impacts happening.
Exactly.
At that time. You definitely would not see a therapist. Oh my goodness, no. That would. And if you were a religious person, you would not see a therapist. There was
No,
also
you would
that.
do the
Religious
chat
people
tour.
would never, like that, you would be discrediting the faith to see a therapist. Mental wellness has grown leaps and bounds in awareness in the past 10, 20 years. I was reminded recently on another conversation with someone that cancer used to be seen as something you didn't talk about. They called it the big C, or, they didn't talk about cancer. Shameful to have cancer. And I said to the host, I can hardly remember that, but you're right. And she said, we are now seeing that happening with mental wellness as well. We're starting to get to the point where we now talk about mental wellness as openly as the ribbons for cancer. And it's a breath of fresh air, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Life is really shifting. And the only thing that I see where judgment is like becoming more of an issue, at least here in Europe, is, for example, I'm also applying for jobs, and all the CVs, because my CV, for example, is very broad, because I can do podcasting and I can do marketing, but I don't have a degree in it. And I'm a coach and I'm a therapist. In that, I have a degree, but it doesn't help a big company. So the judgment doesn't come anymore from the human reading the CV, because no human reads the CV. It's an AI that reads and just takes the keywords, and there comes a big judgment. So this is a whole new ball game of, oh my God, how are you going to bring yourself, your personality into a company if not a person is actually reading it?
Yes, you are absolutely right. If you need metadata on your CV to get the interview. And once you get the interview, you need to show your humanity and that extra sparkle to get to the second interview. And that is what we're faced with right now. We have to meet the algorithm to get the resume, to get the interview. Past the CV to the interview. And this is a whole new chapter. And so those graduates coming out of school, oh my goodness, this is what they need. So a challenge.
A last quick question before we wrap up. What are you exactly doing in your normal day-to-day life?
My normal day-to-day life. I love that question. So I still work full-time at my work. And so I meet with people all day long. I say I'm the obstacle buster. So people come to me and they share with me, here's where I'm at in my project. Here's where I'm stuck. I help them move forward. I unclog the drain all day long.
So you're also a coach.
It feels like it's something. So in leadership, I struggled for a while. Like, I'm not doing anything. What did I do all day? I had meetings all day, but I meet with the teams and help them move it forward. We are always seeking to optimize at our company. How can we be more efficient? How can we do more with less? But I also care very, very much about whether my team members are thriving. So it's always a check-in, like, how are you feeling? And how are you doing? And I always save at least 5 minutes of our conversations for what's happening. Did you adopt that dog? Did you plant that tree? What are you doing as a human while you are moving our company forward? So I do that all day long. Then I turn off the computer and I might go hold that baby. I have a grandchild who's 4 months old. I might go hold that baby. I'll walk or bike. And we cook. My husband and I cook together every night. We love to cook. And we live on the water, so we try to be on the water. So that's the balance right now, and preparing to retire in a few short years. And then what does that look like? I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. When I'm not doing all of those things, I say yes to every opportunity to speak and talk about rare disease, because it affected my life, and I want to help where I.
Absolutely. So my podcast doors are always open for you. If you want to maybe read ones out of your book or so, we can do another one.
That'd be so fun. I absolutely love having met you, Edna, and this has been the highlight. Has been able to meet people from other countries and just widen my awareness and I can always learn every day, learn something new and more about people, different people different from me, which has been absolutely exciting and wonderful. So thank you.